Guy Britton here, thanks for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you what I believe to be the ultimate vocal chain for mixing pop vocals. This is a vocal chain that I've built over years and years of mixing, and it lives in my template, and I wanted to share with you just the basic principles behind this vocal chain and show you how easy it is to get consistent results every single time you mix. We're going to be working in Logic Pro today just using stock plugins because I don't want to get too caught up in exactly what plugins I'm using, what plugins I'm not using. I want to show you that it's possible with some basic principles to achieve great results every single time just using the stock plugins. I want to take a second to let you know as well that if you are a Logic Pro user, this particular vocal chain that we're using today is featured in my Ultimate Mixing Bundle, which contains a bunch of custom-made channel strips for Logic Pro to help you achieve better mixes every single time. So if you are interested in that, you can check that out on the link in the description below. In the meantime, let's jump in and take a look at what's going on. So the track we're working with today is a track called Young Kid by Luke Gittins. Luke's an incredible singer-songwriter, and this is another great tune from him. So I'll play you a bit of the track with no processing on the vocal, and then we'll look at how we can shape this up to sound like something that's more like a finished, polished pop vocal.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
So as you can hear, it's pretty raw so far. There's no processing on that vocal, it's super dry. There's quite a few issues that we need to address. I'm going to show you how we can do that using this vocal chain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this track and I'm going to mute this original lead vocal dry track. And then I'm going to go to my library, user patches, and I'm going to load up the Ultimate Vocal Chain from the Ultimate Mixing pack. So if we go to Ultimate Vocal Chain, here we go. You'll see this loads up this bus. I'm just going to close the library. And if I open up this bus, you'll see now we have this lead vocal track here, which is an audio track. Then we have a bunch of different aux channels down here. So we have one called 1176 parallel, one called brightener, one called width, room, plate, eighth note delay, and ping pong slap. And what this is we have the original audio track that we're going to do most of the processing on. Then we have some parallel processing with an 1176 compressor. Then we have this brightener track, which I'll get into exactly what that is and what that does in the chain. And then we have some effect sends, which is a widener, some room reverb, some plate reverb, eighth note delay, ping pong slap. And all of these things are going to come into play. And these, like I said, this lives in my template because I find that these are the only things that I need to get a great vocal sound. And if I can't get a great vocal sound using that, I can use some other specific things. But for most of my mixes, this is going to cover exactly what I need. I know that I can load this up, leave this in my template, and every single time recall it, and I'm not going to need to reach for anything else. And it makes things so much smoother, quicker, much more efficient, and just consistent vocal sounds, which is exactly what we want. So first thing I'm going to do is just drag this whole vocal down onto this lead vocal track here. I'm going to just call this Ultimate Vocal Chain as well. This bus here is going to include all of these different channels for the processing, but the main process is going to happen on this channel. We'll break down exactly what's going on this chain as well. You see these sends are all set up. So I have these two pre-fader sends, which go to the 1176 in parallel and the brightener. Then we have these post-fader sends, which are all for these kind of effect sends down here. But let's just take a listen to what that sounds like, and then I'll go through this processing chain and see how we can adjust this.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
You can hear that's already making a big difference to the sound just with that basic processing on. So let's see exactly what's going on here. So firstly, I have the gain plugin, which is there just to gain stage the channel. It's coming in at a good level for me. I don't need to do anything there. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. I've got the channel EQ, which is just cleaning up some low end, taking out a little bit of resonance around a 250 and then boosting this top end a little bit. So we're adding a bit of presence around about 3.8K and then 7.5K this shelf here. This is just in the preset as it loads up, but I kind of like how it sounds. What I might do is just take a little bit of brightness away, and we'll come to that later on. So just going to remove that shelf that's there. Let's just take a listen to that without any of the other processing going on and see what that sounds like.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work.
So we're just doing a little bit to clean up this resonance here. My approach to mixing is always take away what shouldn't be there before you start adding things. So we're just taking away a bit of this boxiness around about 400 hertz and then taking away some resonance around about 200 hertz and just cleaning up this low end as well. A little bit of a bump here, but it's really just kind of adding a tiny bit of presence. We're going to add some more brightness later on. I'll show you how we're going to do that using some of the sends and the other plugins. So next up, we have a compressor. This first instance of compression is in series in the channel, and it's a vintage FET 1176 style compressor. You'll see I've got a super fast attack and quite a fast release as well. And the idea behind that is we're just going to use this compressor to catch these peaks. I don't necessarily want to be compressing these quieter parts of the vocal. All I want to do is iron out these big jumps in the vocal to give a more consistent sound. And then we're going to use the parallel compression later on to shape the tone and fatten the whole thing up a little bit more. So let's just take a listen to that and see if we can get the needle moving. So somewhere just above these quietest parts. I don't want them to be moving around here. I'm making sure that we're cutting off these like loud, spiky transients that are cutting through and just kind of giving us more of an inconsistent vocal sound. So let's just play that back and see what we can do.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta have time, no waste your time.
Cool, that's enough. I don't need to do any more compression than that for now. This is literally just shaving off some of those peaks and make the vocal a little bit more consistent and help it sit in the track a little bit more. And to me, that sounds good enough for that. So we're going to move on to the next plugin in the chain, which is the Tube EQ. You see that I've got it set up here with the high boost. This is like a pull tech style thing. High boost, high bandwidth. So we're boosting a lot, around about 10K. And we're just attenuating some of this low end as well. So we're rolling off a little bit of low end and boosting some of this top end. We've also got a little dip out at around about 2.5K, 2.6K, which is going to remove some harshness. So this is just how it's set up in the chain. We'll take a listen to that and we'll dial it in, see if it needs to change in any way.
You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. A friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
That sounds pretty good. It's making a big difference. That low end cleanup is just helping roll off some of that muddiness, and that top end is opening the vocal up a little bit. It's really important to listen in the context of the mix when we do this as well, and not just listen in solo. But we'll just play it in solo now so we can turn this on and off and see what difference it's making. But I feel like it's already sitting in the track a lot better just with some very basic light processing.
A friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance. You gotta have faith in me. I am just a young kid.
Cool, it sounds good. It's already shaping up into something that sounds like a finished vocal with basically no processing on the chain. Obviously it's not there yet, but it's definitely improving and definitely heading in the right direction. What I want to do is just add a bit of a de-esser just to calm some sibilance. There's not a whole lot going on. I've just got it set, the shelf filter at 7K, and then just a little bit of reduction going on. Let's just dial that in and make sure that we're not taking away too much.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. And you said that you'd be there till the end.
Cool, that sounds good. That's natural. I don't need to do any more de-essing than that. It's just calming some of the sibilance a little bit without kind of squashing those S's too much. So let's take a listen to what that sounds like in comparison to this original vocal track. So this is just the processing on the chain. Although these sends are active, they're actually muted down here. So we're not hearing any of these sends. We're just hearing what's happening on the actual audio track itself. So let's take a listen before and after and see what we've done so far.
You You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
Nice. This made a big difference. Really cleaned up a lot of that muddiness, helped the vocal to be a bit brighter, and just helping it sit in the track a lot more. So what I want to do now is I want to make it a bit fatter, a bit thicker. I feel like it sounds good, but I want it to be present. I want it to be upfront. I want it to really cut through that track. So in order to do that, I'm going to use this 1176 parallel send. Now, if we go into this, you'll see this is just an 1176 compressor. It's nothing more than that, but the ratio is set all the way to 30, and we're really going to squash this vocal. Take a listen to this on its own. You'll hear that it sounds absolutely disgusting.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend.
What we're going to do now is mix that back in and blend that with the original vocal. Firstly, what I want to do is listen to this in solo and just make sure that we set the attack time right. And what I'm looking for is for the real diction of that vocal, the plosive sounds, the Ds, the Ts, the Ps, all of these things to be cutting through nicely and then squashing the rest of it. And that's going to help make it easier to pick out the words in the song, particularly in a busier mix and the busier parts of the mix. So I just want to set this attack time just so that it's not squashing the kind of very initial transients of his vocal.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
Cool. So that's super squashed. Like, it doesn't sound good on its own. But what we're going to do now is blend that back in with the original vocal. Let's listen to that in the context of the mix.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance. You gotta have faith in me. I am just a young kid trying to make a leap. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find.
You can hear how much difference that's making. Obviously, it's adding level because we're adding it in parallel. So naturally, it's very difficult to kind of A-B match the level before and after the parallel compression because the parallel compression is naturally going to add level to that. But that's fine. It sounds good to me. It's definitely a lot thicker and it's sitting in that track a lot more. It feels like the vocal is above the track, which is where I want it to be, up front, close to the listener. It gives us a much more kind of intimate feel to it, which is really nice. So next up, what I want to do is just going to take out a little bit of that mid-range. So that kind of 2.5K, it's going to dip a little bit more of that out because it feels like it's getting a little harsh to me now.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
That's cool. I don't want it to be too scooped. So next up, we're going to look at this Brightener track. Now, what this is essentially just a super hyped track that's got a harmonic exciter on it, adding some harmonics around about 9.5K. And then we have this linear phase EQ to ensure that the phase remains locked in with the lead vocal. And that's boosting everything from 3K upwards on this high shelf. So 12.5 dB is an enormous boost. And then we're running that into a compressor just to tighten it up a little bit. You can see there's not a lot mixed in here. This is going to make a big difference. It's super bright. On its own, it sounds horrible.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend.
And we're going to mix that in with the original lead vocal. Now you might ask, why are we not just EQing the lead vocal? And that's a good question, but I like it this way because it allows me to have it on a fader so I can just bring more brightness into the vocal, particularly if we want to do it like maybe we want the vocal to be a little brighter in the chorus and bring it above the mix. Having it on a fader allows us to just automate that fader. Haven't got to go in, open up an EQ, automate the EQ. This just sounds better to me. Every time it helps it cut through a lot more. It's not the same as having it on an EQ because we've got an exciter in there. We've got some compression going on as well. So it's tightening that up a lot more than it would be if we were just boosting that top end with an EQ. So let's take a listen to what that sounds like in the track and we'll see if we can blend this in so that it sits nicely.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance. You gotta have faith in me. I am just. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine.
You can hear that compressor as well in that chain helps to just add a bit more excitement. It's a lot different sound to just adding an EQ. It's adding a bit of aggression, it's adding a bit more bite, and I really like that. But what you find is as we start to add these parallel sends in, it's going to start to increase in volume because we're adding more and more volume through these sends. So we can just pull the level back from this bus if it's too much. Let's just take a listen to where that is now and see what we've done.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
And then let's listen to that in comparison to the original dry vocal that we had.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
You can hear it sounds totally different now. It's cutting through the mix way more. It sounds way more polished. We're maybe pushing the brightness a little too far, but I think it's important to push it too far and then bring it back. Once we get the effects in as well, we're going to hear that in a lot more kind of finished vocal context, and it's going to help us sit that in a bit more. But for now, that sounds good. So what I want to do is start looking at how can we spice this vocal up a bit, add some character, add some color through some reverbs and some delays and so on. So firstly, we have this width track here. And this is coming off of the first send, the first post fader send, which is bus 35 here. It's going to crank this up a little bit more so we can hear exactly what this is doing. All this is a sample delay. So we're just delaying the left and right hand sides of the delay, just to create a little bit of width. There's no modulation or anything going on. So this is just adding some width to this vocal. And this sounds like this.
Gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end.
Now the thinking behind this is to not create like a chorusy effect. If you want to create a chorusy effect, you can do that. But it's just to mix it in enough so that you feel it rather than you hear it. So let's just take a listen to that on its own and see what it sounds like.
Have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
That feels like it's pretty much at the point where you're feeling it rather than hearing it. If you want to add just a little extra spice to that, what we can do is go to the side only, add an EQ, set to side only. So we're just going to boost the top end in the sides of that. And that might just help create sort of the illusion that it's a little bit wider because it's brighter on the sides.
Have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine.
Just adding a very faint presence in that width definitely helps add a little bit more dimension to that vocal and just make it feel a bit bigger and a bit thicker. So now that we've got the vocal sounding a bit more polished, a bit wider, a bit thicker, what we need to start doing is adding in some effects just to get it to sit in the mix a little bit more. So firstly, I have this room reverb. I like a little bit of room reverb just to help the vocal feel a bit more natural. This vocal, I believe, was recorded on an SM7B, so you don't get a lot of room noise when you're recording on one of these because often people are like super close to the mic when they're doing it and it rejects a little bit of the room around it. So it's important to kind of add a little bit of life to that vocal. So again, I'm going to just crank this up so that we can hear what it's doing. And that room send on its own sounds like this.
Have a friend to be a friend.
In Logic, I'm using the small wet room, which is just super short, and it sounds like this with the vocal.
Have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine.
And a bit like that width track, the idea is to feel it more than hear it. I don't want it to necessarily feel like it's in a room. I don't want it to be sort of this wet, chorusy style reverb. What I want is just to feel that the vocal has a bit of natural space around it. And that room reverb is just going to help to do that. So let's take a listen to that in the context of the mix.
Have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end.
It's super subtle, but it's just helping sit it in a little bit more, makes the vocal feel a little bit more natural. And yeah, I really like how that sounds. So next up, we have the plate reverb, and this is super simple. I like to have a plate reverb on every vocal that I do. And then I'm just taking out some of this low mid, rolling out the low end, taking out a little bit high mid harshness and rolling off this top end as well before it goes to the reverb. In this case, I've just got like a 41 millisecond pre-delay and a 3.5 second reverb, which is just this hot plate setting in Space Designer. But you can use any plate reverb that you like. You might have a plugin that you like to use all the time. You find that that works. In that case, use that. I just like to have a plate reverb that's got a medium to long and just kind of helps fill in the gaps around the vocal. So let's take a listen to what that plate sounds like, and we'll dial it into taste.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste.
What I like with the plate reverb is a reverb that kind of decays in time with the vocals, so that in the gaps like here, there's enough time for that to decay and then start again. And it sounds pretty much like it's spot on just pulling up that preset. That kind of 3.5 second length is good length for that because it fills in that gap. So let's just play this in the context of the track and then dial this plate level into taste.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance. You gotta have faith in me. I am just a young kid. You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time.
Nice. So I've just dialed back a little bit of that top end because I felt like it was a little too bright. I've just increased the length a little bit, but just listening then I feel like I've maybe gone a little too far. So we just pull that back a little bit more. So maybe around about 150. And that's going to give us a good length on that reverb. And then what I like about having it on a fader here in the track as opposed to just working from the send is often it's easier to automate. So I've got the SSL Nucleus, which is a control surface right in front of me. So I prefer to have things on faders. You could automate this reverb send here by doing it that way, but I quite like to have it on a fader. So if we wanted to have like less reverb in the verse and more reverb in the chorus, it's super easy to just like put this into latch mode or put this into touch and play it back and just use the fader to set that reverb level rather than going in on this sort of micro send control here. Particularly in Logic, it's quite difficult to do that and be accurate. So I like to do it just on the return for the fader. But anyway, that's the idea. So far, we've got this room reverb, this plate reverb, the width, the brightener, and the 1176 in parallel, which is already helping to shape it up. Lastly, I just want to add a little bit of delay, kind of give the vocal a little bit more character, and just have to finish this up. So let's take a listen to what this eighth note delay sounds like. An eighth note delay is usually good for me. Sometimes you need longer delays, quarter note, or sometimes you need like a shorter slapback thing. But in most cases, I like to have an eighth note delay ready to go. And if it works, it works. If not, we can change it. So let's take a listen to what that sounds like.
You got a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show.
That sounds pretty cool. You'll notice I've got this chorus plugin after the delay, and what that's doing is just kind of smearing the delay, making it a little bit wider and helping to just kind of get it out of the way of the vocal so that it's not clashing with the lead vocal too much. Without that chorus, it sounds like this.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end.
What that chorus does is it almost makes it difficult to identify where the delay is coming from. And I like that effect. I don't necessarily want to be like, okay, there's the delay in the stereo field, or is it over there? smearing it kind of helps to make it a bit more ambiguous and just sit it behind that vocal a little bit more. So let's listen in the context of the track and pull that level down to make sure that we got it at the right level.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance.
Nice. It's just helping push that vocal back a touch, give a little bit more space around that vocal, and bringing that down somewhere around here helps blend it in with that plate reverb so that it's not like an obvious delay and an obvious kind of additional effect. It's just helping kind of create this ambience and this space around the vocal. So lastly, we have this ping pong slap, which is really just a simple left and right delay, filtered out. So we're cutting out some low end and rolling off some top end. And basically what this is doing is just help create a bit extra width around that vocal. So obviously we've already got this width track, but I want to create something now which is a more obvious delay. We'll see what this sounds like. You don't always need a ping pong. Sometimes it gets a little messy, but it's, again, a nice thing to have there, a nice thing to just be able to pull up super quickly. So let's listen in the context of the mix and see if we need this or not.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance. You gotta have faith in me. I am just a young kid trying.
Nice. I really like that ping pong slap. I think it's adding some energy to the track and it gives the vocal just a little bit more dimension, makes it a little bit more exciting. So let's take a listen to what we've done. If we just recap quickly, we've got the lead vocal with some basic processing going on here, some EQ, some compression, some extra EQ, and then a bit of de-essing. Then we have this 1176 in parallel, along with a bit of brightening in parallel, and then some width, some room reverb, some plate reverb, the 8th note delay, and then the ping pong slap. And all of this together is going to sound like this. I'll play this vocal back and then I'll A-B between that and the original vocal so you can see what difference we've made.
You gotta have a friend to be a friend. You gotta play around and play pretend. We only work for the weekend. You said that you'd be there till the end. You gotta have time, no waste your time. You gotta show love if you want mine. Darling, I hope that we might find it this time. You gotta have luck for romance. You gotta have luck to have a chance. You gotta have faith in me. I am just a young kid trying to make a living. Life it ain't forgiving. Darling, I am giving in. I'm just a young kid trying to make a difference, trying to make a living. Nobody will listen to me. Oh, 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 oh.
So you can hear what an enormous difference that's made. We've gone from something which is kind of boxy, a bit flat, not really singing the track very well, to this polished, clean pop vocal sound with some nice reverbs, delays, and some spatial effects going on. And it's all super simple. There's nothing complicated in here. The vocal chain itself, like the basic chain, is just 5 plugins. Then we have a little bit of parallel stuff going on, and then these effect sends. And like I say, for me, it works pretty much every time on every mix. In my template, I am using other plugins. I'm not necessarily just using stock plugins. So I recommend, if you want to swap it out for other plugins, then please go ahead and do that. If there's other 1176s that you like or other reverbs or whatever it may be, then definitely go and swap them out, try something else. But this basic principle of having these 5 plugins on the main chain and then using this parallel stuff and just keeping that in your template so that you can recall it every time and use the brightening to brighten the vocal where you need to and using the parallel compression to thicken the vocal where you need to. Everything is there, and I find that these things are basically just like a little toolkit that I can use every single time on every mix to create a great vocal sound. And it's really as simple as that. Just another reminder that if you are a Logic Pro user, you can get access to this exact vocal chain right now as part of my Ultimate Mixing Bundle, which is in the link in the description below. So please check that out if you are interested. If you're looking to work together on a mix, feel free to give me a shout. You can contact me via my website or via my email, which is guy@guybritton.com. If you're looking for mix feedback or anything that I can help with, then please give me a shout. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.